Добрий день, є
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to see everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukraine Forum. My name is Olga Atamanova. It's day 623 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and now we will be talking about the situation in Kherson region. Joining us online is Oleksandr Tolokonnikov, spokesman of the Kherson Regional Military Administration. Good afternoon, Mr. Oleksandr. Good afternoon. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Mr. Oleksandr, let's start with the current situation in Kherson region. So what is it like for the time being? Within the last day, there were 48 shellings of Kherson and Kherson region launched from the east bank. The Russians launched 58 projectiles from different types of weapons, MLRS, cannon artillery, drones, aviation. One person got blown up on a landmine in Arkhangelsk. One person got shrapnel damage in Kozatsk. 4 more were injured in Kherson and around Kherson, 3 in Zelenivka. One person got one of his lower limbs amputated, and one more man was injured by shrapnel in the city of Kherson itself. So this is the situation with the shellings. Mr. Oleksandr, talking about the critical infrastructure, is everything in operation in Kherson region? What is the situation with the critical infrastructure? Well, today the Teploenergo, the heat transportation facilities are 98% ready. The other heating supply facilities, the central heating supply facilities, are ready 100%. 2 more boiler rooms are about to be back in operation shortly, within the next couple of days. If the security situation allows us, we will get 100% of the consumers connected to the heat supply. Mr. Oleksandr, you have mentioned that we understand almost on a daily basis there are casualties among the civil population in Kherson. So how do the hospitals cope with that problem? Do the neighboring regions help you with this? Yes, currently there are 800 doctors working in the west bank of Kherson region, including the medics from other regions. They work on a rotation basis. Those who fulfill the shift, they go back home. And it's about 800 to 900 medics currently working in the region. So we have a sufficient number of medics working, including the emergency medical aid doctors. They go on missions throughout the whole of Kherson region. Just today I was reading information about the situation in Henichsk region. The situation is way worse there. Sometimes it happens so that people have to wait for emergency medical aid for up to 3 hours, which is unacceptable, specifically during a time like this. So talking about the situation with the evacuation from the region, do people continue evacuation? What is the situation like now? There are more than 53 families with kids evacuated from 27 settlements starting from 27th of October, starting with the beginning of the mandatory evacuation. 432 more still remain in those settlements, but we continue working with the parents, with the families of those kids, with their communities to intensify the work. We send videos and photos of the conditions where the children with the families who were evacuated reside at the moment, and we hope that within a week or so we will be able to evacuate all of them. Sometimes there are difficult cases when people hide with their children, they get evacuated, but then they come back through some unofficial routes. but I hope we will cope with the situation shortly. Talking about the situation in the East Bank, what is the situation there? We know there are statements about the advances of our armed forces over there, and just today there was a statement that the occupiers are mining the critical infrastructure on the occupied part of on the East Bank, in the occupied part of the Kherson region. Yes, unfortunately, we've heard this information as well. On one hand, it's bad because we remember, as we've come back on the 12th of November after the liberation of Kherson, there was no light, no heating, no gas supply, no water supply, and we had to reestablish all those critical infrastructure facilities and their operation quite quickly. But it's a good sign because, on the other hand, because the occupiers are planning to withdraw, and we were not counting that they would have left it all to the people as they withdraw. I think they will blow it up just in the same way that they were doing it on the West Bank during their withdrawal. So second year in a row we will continue doing the same thing we were doing here on the West Bank. Mr. Oleksandr, does the military regional administration has any plan? If we all believe that the East Bank of Kherson region will be liberated by our armed forces, do you understand what is the procedure, what are the plans, what is the sequence of actions, what are the basic steps, the first steps that have to be taken by the regional military administration? Well, of course, we were walking that path just 1 year ago, so we're already prepared. We know what's needed. First of all, it's water, hygienic products. All of our international partners already have reserves, and they're waiting for the green light. Talking about other things, we have a strategic reserve of generators that are supposed to go to the East Bank when there are problems with the electricity supply. We also procure the reserves of timber so people can get heat in the winter. So just a little bit and we'll proceed to those operations just as we were exercising it all in the West Bank. Well, we know that our people is the greatest value, so how well is the staff reserve prepared as soon as our armed forces liberate our East Bank? Well, this talent pool was being created since the beginning of the occupation of the West Bank. All the representatives of the communities and staff from the East Bank were assigned to the communities in the West Bank. They were helping us in the restoration works, and now they understand what is needed for the people first thing and for the communities in the East Bank. Well, it is the case that there is a staff deficit, a talent deficit, which is the same story for the West Bank, because the people have to continue working under constant shelling, but there are still people available, and we understand that as soon as we liberate the East Bank, more people will be coming back, and it will be easier to exercise all related works after the liberation of the East Bank. Good afternoon, Valentina Rikal, Ukrinform. Another question regarding the occupied East Bank of Kherson region. Do we know what's going on with the mobilization by Russian occupiers over there? Well, they're put together the medical examination committees, and we hope that given the slow way they prepare, God help us to make sure they don't mobilize anybody in the forced manner, but they continue their propaganda. They continue promising the people that it's good, everybody makes a lot of money. But if any of the collaborationists decides to fight against their own country for that money, let them do it. Those the previous cases, the previous benchmarks, when they were putting together a brigade in Kenish's community that was sent to the Zaporizhia region, and the brigade just dissolved within a couple of days. Everybody knows that story in the East Bank, and people don't have, even the local collaborationists don't have a desire just to perish like a piece of meat in the fields. Well, do we understand it correctly that that was a brigade made of local population? Yes, that was a voluntary battalion. They were not mobilized in a forced manner, and they bravely died for the Russian world. Well, thank you very much for this broadcast, and maybe the last question about the East Bank. Do we have any more questions on the floor? Well, now that we don't have any more questions, we would like to thank you for this broadcast. Thank you for finding time to join us online, and we continue working together for our victory. Joining us was Oleksandr Tolokonnikov, spokesman for the Kherson Regional Military Administration. Stay tuned, follow our announcements, and glory to Ukraine.